Eric Rodgers from Rutgers. Rodgers had 2 interceptions. He ran back 43 yards for a touchdown. The Chargers played the Rams Saturday afternoon at SoFi. Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford is scheduled to practice Monday for the first time in training camp if he's healthy. Stafford is trying to recover from a slipped disc in his lower back. No debates, no speculation, just that's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we aim to foster enlightening, sustainable, restorative dialogue, and we welcome unapologetically progressive viewpoints that empower fellow citizens. We are now accepting submissions for KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorials like this one.
With the KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorial, I'm Martin Gordon, chair of the Pasadena Community Coalition. Recently, I listened to a Tavis Smiley Show conversation with James Falk. James said something that caught me off guard. Black Altadena is gone. My community is being murdered. I said murdered.
All you have to do is go to our website homepage at kbla1580.com and click on the icon that says KBLA Guest Editorials to learn more about our editorial standards and content submission guidelines. As long as the topic aligns with our mission, we are happy to review your submission and consider it for broadcast. We can't make any promises, but we want to amplify progressive perspectives that are community-focused and solution-oriented. So go to KBLA1580.com right now to download all the information you need about our guest editorials. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Today, the President of the United States essentially announced the takeover of Washington, D.C. Secretary Hegseth and Pam Bondi flanked the President of the United States as he indicated that he was taking over the D.C. Police Department, some of the critical functions of government, having not notified the D.C. police or notifying the mayor and the elected officials, sending a scramble through local city government. In 1991 or so, my father ran for shadow senator from the District of Columbia to raise a simple point about democracy. That there were 8 states in the United States that had fewer people in those states than lived in the District of Columbia. The district is not a city. It is not a state. It is a district. He argued that democracy was to be apportioned on the basis of people, not on the basis of land and territory. There are more people in Washington, D.C. than live in the state of Vermont, and yet Vermont has 2 United States senators. There are more people who live in the District of Columbia than live in New Hampshire, but New Hampshire has 2 United States senators. Reverend Jackson made the argument that the more than 600,000 people who live in the District of Columbia were entitled to at least one congressperson, that would have been Eleanor Holmes Norton, who would have the power and the right to vote in the United States House of Representatives, but that the District of Columbia was also entitled to 2 United States senators, provided that by a simple vote of the House of Representatives, the District of Columbia could be welcomed into the Union as the 51st state, almost guaranteeing 2 progressive United States senators, giving the overwhelming African-American population in the District of Columbia. Touted as potential candidates at that time, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, the late Commerce Secretary Ron Brown, the late head of the National Urban League, Vernon Jordan, as well as others, were seriously considered as potential candidates for the United States Senate. And even though Democrats maintained control of the Congress of the United States and at times the Senate of the United States as well, as well as having Democratic presidents of the United States, the same people who are crying and hollering about the absence of democracy right now, ignored their plea by simple majority in the Congress of the United States and simple majority in the Senate of the United States, and the president's signature. The 51st state could have been welcomed in our country, adding another star to the American flag, but certainly strengthening in the United States Senate progressive majority, a majority that Democrats needed then and the same majority that Democrats need now. And instead of that, today we have a federal takeover of the District of Columbia, with Donald Trump promising more takeovers. California, Los Angeles already has a National Guard presence. But today in the press conference, the president indicated that he wasn't very happy with what's going on in Oakland, California, or in Baltimore, Maryland. He just went down a litany of cities where he said very specifically at the press conference, we will go further. Now, call that a diversion from the Epstein files, call that a diversion from whatever it is that may be mentally ailing the president of the United States at this hour. The reality is, these are cities where we live. And coming to a city near you is a federal presence, unprecedented in the United States since the American Civil War. He's looking for reasons to bring the federal government into our local municipalities. While Muriel Bowser's administration in Washington, D.C. is touting its numbers that we are at a 30-year low in the District of Columbia with respect to crime, and by definition, violent crime. Donald Trump uses the excuse that this is the most crime-filled city in the nation without any facts or any substantive justification. And interestingly enough, I've already heard from several Black businessmen in the District of Columbia who see what they call the opportunity. What the hell is that? The opportunity. Well, the opportunity is to restructure business in the District of Columbia. And so they don't see that everything Donald Trump is doing isn't necessarily in their own interests. We can expect that in many cities across the country should Donald Trump decide to expand federal authority. Look for the business community to say, this may not be a bad thing. We'd like to find a way to relate to the anti-democratic forces that have seized our federal government. Today is Moving Mountain Mondays with Ernest Krim and Dr. Teresa Hordorns. When we come forward on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, we're going to talk about the federal takeover of the District of Columbia and much more. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Coverage varies by plan. View contracts and exclusions at endurancewarranty.com.
This is an announcement to all United States vehicle owners who own a 2003 or newer vehicle with a manufacturer's warranty about to expire or no warranty coverage at all. With a struggling economy and the cost of living on the rise, Endurance is now offering an affordable, low-cost vehicle coverage plan to the general public. As of today, you could be one of millions of drivers that now may qualify to have your vehicle protected under this coverage and have all future covered auto repairs paid directly to the repair shop for you. You pick your plan. You pick your deductible. You even pick the repair shop. Roadside service, towing, and rental coverage is included. Get your vehicle protected now and save your wallet from costly vehicle repairs. A toll-free number has been established for you to call for your free 5-minute quote and to see if you qualify. The number to call is 800-290-6207. 800-290-6207. Again, that's 800-290-6207.
Some things can steal your sunshine. Ugh, I just got my hair done.
Sorry, the cooler's broken. Anyone see my flip-flops? Anyone?
But COVID-19 can steal a lot more.
I just took a COVID test. Ugh.
Prescription medications for COVID exist. If you test positive this summer, ask your doctor if they're right for you. Visit Pfizerforall.com/COVID-19 to learn more. Sponsored by Pfizer.
There's one question every couple needs to answer. What if something happens to us? Kids, a house, a life you've built, but no estate plan? That's a risk you don't want to take. With Trust and Will, it's fast, secure, and easy to protect what matters most. Start your plan today at trustandwill.com. Use code RADIO to save 20%. Check it off your list. One less thing to worry about. Trust and Will is an online estate planning service. See website for details.
Trust and Will. Sometimes an identity threat is a ring of professional hackers. And sometimes it's an overworked accountant who forgot to encrypt their connection while sending bank details.
I need a coffee.
And you need LifeLock because your info is in endless places. It only takes one mistake to expose you to identity theft. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS at lifelock.com. Terms apply.
You're still glowing, flirting, grooving. You still got it. But your immune system weakens as you age, making it harder to fight flu, pneumococcal pneumonia, RSV, and COVID-19. Vaccines are a key part of any health routine and help strengthen your immune response. Ask your doctor or pharmacist which vaccines you need. Schedule in minutes at vaxassist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. The District of Columbia, commonly known as Washington, D.C., was established as the capital of the United States in 1790, following the U.S. Constitution's authorization for a federal district. The area was chosen to be independent from state control and was formed by land ceded from Maryland and Virginia. The district was named in honor of Christopher Columbus, or New Columbia, and President George Washington. Over time, it became known as Chocolate City because of the number of African Americans that subsequently ended up working in the District of Columbia. Our guest in this hour is Ernest Krim III, an Emmy-nominated producer, public teacher, anti-racist educator, and hate crime victor who uses Black historical narratives to empower and educate through a culturally equitable lens. Mr. Krim, a South Side of Chicago native and University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign graduate, is a former high school teacher, educator for 12 years, who now advocates for social justice issues and teaches Black history to the world through the social media and with platforms that reach roughly 4 million people each month. He's created content for companies such as HBO, Hulu, Disney, Paramount, and the History Channel. Ernest Krim, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Hey, what's up, brother? It's good to be in community with you again.
Man, it's always good to be in community with you. Well, looks like Black history is being made again today with the federal takeover of Washington, D.C. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's no shock that it is a town, like you said, that is known as Chocolate City. There's no shock to me that we've experienced in D.C. a 30-year low on violent crime, and yet this is happening. It, for me, reminds me of growing up in Chicago in the 90s and having had no idea that crime at that time, violent crime, would sometimes reach as many as 800-900 murders a year. Yet through the 2010s, we were overloaded with propaganda, it seemed, at the end of every weekend, about how many shootings there were, as if there was some type of race to reach a certain mark. And because of that misinformation being proliferated, it made people feel uneasy about moving around the city, even though it was lower in the 2010s than it was 20 years prior. Oftentimes, it's not about what the truth is. It's about how politicians and the media is able to make us feel. And I think when I come across news like this, what I get from that is not only the misinformation that is allowed to spread, but just how we have always been viewed historically, particularly post-emancipation, when our very existence was viewed as a crime. us just standing still. Vagrancy laws were a crime. If you can imagine, our ancestors having worked for hundreds of years without pay, having to survive, and now you have freedom in 1865 for many of us. You don't know what to do next, right? So maybe you are homeless, or maybe you even want to just take some time to do something you could not have done before. That's rest. And your very existence in that moment is viewed as criminal in a system of capitalism, where the top priority is to make money by any means. We have to be very concerned about not just the people in our community, but those of us in our community that are in the lower economic classes. I'm very concerned about what the overall objective of this is for. Because at the same time this is happening, we're seeing record numbers of unemployment within Black women in our community. We're seeing jobs being replaced time and time again, day in and day out, with artificial intelligence or automation, self-checkouts, for example. To me, this seems like a way for us to be funneled into the prison system. And we know, based on the 13th Amendment, what the prison system functions as in this country. It is another method of enslavement. I believe that it is of the utmost importance during this time that we have people in office who are doing their jobs the appropriate way to challenge this. We know there's a lot going on. Like we were just talking about what was happening in Texas, right, the last week or so. And at the same time that's going on, when we had Texas politicians having to flee to come to Illinois, now we have this going on. We have to make sure all hands are on deck. Democratic politicians have to challenge this. We know it's illegal. We know he cannot do this, but who's going to step up and say that you can't get away with it? And for those of us who are not directly in office on the grassroots level, what can we do to protect people? What can we do to communicate this? Because I've seen footage already in the middle of the night before the official announcement even happened. People being confronted at bus stops, people who look like us. This, and again, this is not new. We've seen it in Chicago. We've seen it in New York, stop and frisk. We've seen it time and time again, but to have it approved on a federal level is especially dangerous. And we all have to be proactive moving forward, in my opinion.
I appreciate that. And I think that's a very insightful analysis of what's going on the ground in Washington. I want to add to that the people of the District of Columbia pay more taxes per capita than like 6, 7, or 8 states. That the people of the District of Columbia have fought in every major American war since the Revolutionary War itself. That the people of the District of Columbia, while they are not part of the state of Maryland or the state of Virginia, which in 1790 ceded essentially 10 square miles to create the District of Columbia for the purposes of housing the federal government, there is a delineation between the federal territories where the Capitol is and the archives are and the White House and the Washington Monument and the Lincoln Memorial and those federal territories within Washington. But the rest of Washington, D.C., where the residents live, Rock Creek Park, belongs to the people of the District of Columbia. It does not belong to the federal government. And so Donald Trump's extremely broad overreach into an area that of middle-class Americans, largely middle-class Americans, just outside of one of the wealthiest African-American per capita income districts in the United States, Prince George's County, Maryland, and Old Dominion in Virginia. This is not like one big second-class urban ghetto. This is a very well-planned city that has functioned. It's had its struggles like every municipality does, but it just doesn't seem right that Donald Trump would authorize the National Guard on this occasion, but he did not authorize the National Guard on January 6th. Ernest?
Powerful, powerful expose right there. And I think what we have to remember, and hopefully this remains to be a wake-up call, everything that we've seen roll out since he took office in January impacts all of us. Everything he's done with the with ICE being rolled out on the streets in California, the deportations, disregarding the Constitution with this, the goal and the effort of detaining 3,000 immigrants a day. This is something that impacts all of us constantly. This is not just something that's impacting the Latino community. This is not just something that's impacting even us. We have to all be aware of this, because I believe what is happening right before our eyes is this is just a way for him to practice what you've already mentioned, what he intends to roll out across the country. And in fact, he's already mentioned places that he's targeting. We have seen what it looks like for a fascist dictator to come to rise, and we're witnessing this in real time. And the question that I constantly have for people is, what will we do? Are we going to be prisoners of the moment as we scroll through social media? Are we going to react in awe? Are we going to send SMH and angry reactions on Facebook? Or are we going to commit to doing something moving forward? It feels as though we're in something that's too deep right now, but there has to be a way, there must be a way for us to mobilize in a progressive manner moving forward. Because we have to remember that this is not something that this is something that was handed to him, essentially. And I think that's what's truly, when I think about it, brother, it's so upsetting, because people like yourself, people like me have talked about this, and we saw a glimpse of what it was like for 4 years, for 2016 to 2020. So when we think about the way that works, I think we have to then recognize that collectively we then have the power to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And I think that's what we have to be focusing on moving forward. What can we do in this moment to mobilize, and what can we do to ensure that we have some form, some remnant of a democracy moving forward?
There's a part of me that says that that's the question of the hour, the one that you've raised about what can we do, how can we do it, and what makes the most sense. Now, if I told everybody to make sure that their neighbor were registered to vote and to drag someone to the polls, they would say, well, we've already heard that. We've already done that. Well, there's nothing else short of that, and how powerful that moment actually is, if in fact it happens on the scale of recognition of the problem. That the only non-violent approach to what is taking place in our country is the vote. It is the Christian, the Jewish, the Islamic response in the truest sense of our religions to the moment. It is the only system in human history where we have within our individual and ultimately our collective power to do something about it that is acceptable in the sight of the people. What I am concerned about is, in all of the recent polling, 43% of voters in the United States are still undecided about who to support in 2028. Undecided at 43%. Even on the south side of Chicago, undecided, 47%. And when we begin to peel back the onion, Ernest, of the undecided in the United States, there we find poor whites and poor blacks and the LGBTQ and those who are struggling to live on Medicare and Medicaid, and those who are working hard every day, and at the end of a hard day's work, they cannot buy bread cheaper, they cannot pay rent cheaper, they can't even get a bacon and egg sandwich cheaper, but they deserve fairness from a government of, for, and by the people. I don't have the answer to that, Ernest, other than I wish I could vote 10 times. I wish I could vote more than once.
And what's interesting about that is I think we can. Because when you think about the fact that we have so many people who have not been exercising that right, that's essentially what it boils down to. When I think about the county I live in Illinois, where in local elections, for example, we have sometimes 10% of registered voters, which means that 10% of people are picking who will rule over the 100%, right? And when as you're speaking, I think about all the different ways this can go based on what he's doing, because the more you criminalize people, the less likely they are to have the opportunity to exercise their right to vote. I think there's a method to this madness in so many ways and so many facets that we have not yet begun to impact, because the goal has to be daily for this administration to sow confusion and chaos. Because if we are confused in this, we can't even think about the importance of making sure our neighbors are registered, but then also too making sure that our neighbors are okay. Because when you are in community with folks and you're checking on them and you're making sure that they can vote for the betterment of their livelihoods, you're also checking on their livelihood in that moment. We have to know our neighbors, literally the ones next door to us and beyond. And we have to make sure that they are in some type of communication with people that can respond to this proactively if they are placed in harm's way with what's happening in DC.
I'm particularly moved by your understanding of the issue and just how deep and profound it truly is. I do want to add that when we think about this fledgling of an experiment, the democratic experiment, that African Americans have been so central to its development, as Ernest said earlier, from 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment to the 19th Amendment guaranteeing the women the right to vote, to the 26th Amendment guaranteeing 18-year-olds the right to vote. It seems to me that our democracy has never been in more peril than it is at this hour. And I can't figure out completely for the life of me why 47% of the people who are not voting are in effect voting for what is taking place. In other words, you have no choice but to be conscious in this process. An unconscious and an ignorant voter is the worst thing on earth. I bumped into some elected officials the other day and I told them, we need to start doing voter registration. They said, no, don't do no voter registration in my area. I got all my voters. No, don't do no voter registration. I'm not discussing about the voters, that the 3 people that vote for you. I'm discussing about the 97% or the 97 people who aren't voting for anybody beyond you, but they're so afraid of the 97 that they are happy with the 3 people who vote for them. That's an example. That's a stretch. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, more with Ernest Grimm III.
The biggest names, the best conversations. You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. The NYPD's Quality of Life Division is now active across all of Queens after launching in April and expanding to Brooklyn, the Bronx, and Manhattan. Teams target illegal mopeds, abandoned vehicles, encampments, outdoor drug use, and noise complaints.
And every New York deserves to live in a neighborhood that is safe from gun violence, has clean streets, and is free from illegal activities.
Black Mayor Eric Adams says the effort has already led to hundreds of seizures and faster response times. President Trump is taking control of Washington, D.C.'s police as part of a crime crackdown, calling today the city's Liberation Day. He's deploying the National Guard with the military on standby and criticized Black Mayor Muriel Bowser's efforts, claiming crime is worse than in Baghdad. And today marks 60 years since the Watts riot in Los Angeles. The unrest began in 1965 after police pulled over 21-year-old Black motorist Marquette Fry. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice: continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
Is this the title? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The LA Sparks got another W Sunday night. The Sparks' 94-91 win last night over the Seattle Storm is their 10th win in the last 13 games. Jerika Hamby converted a layup with 5.6 seconds left in the fourth quarter to seal it. The Sparks at 15-16 have a chance to reach 500 for the first time since May 18th. They play the defending WNBA champs, the New York Liberty, Tuesday night at Crypto.com Arena. The Chargers are 2-0 in the preseason after beating New Orleans 27-13. The star of the game was Chargers rookie cornerback Eric Rodgers from Rutgers. Rodgers had 2 interceptions. He ran back 43 yards for a touchdown. The Chargers played the Rams Rams Saturday afternoon at SoFi. Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford is scheduled to practice Monday for the first time in training camp if he's healthy. Stafford is trying to recover from a slipped disc in his lower back. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., inviting you to join me weekdays at 12 noon, right after Tavis Smiley, here on KBLA Talk 1580. As a law school graduate and a theologian with a firm grasp of our body politic given almost 2 decades in Congress, my show is the fresh new home of an authentic, uncompromised quest for transformation and salvation, both personal and collectively, as I vigorously interrogate the theological and symbolic meanings embedded in our society. I promise to leverage my knowledge of history, theology, and both international and domestic issues to imagine an inclusive vision for the future, which I hope will inspire all of us to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as a given, not just an aspiration. So join me weekdays at 12 noon, right after Tavis Smiley, for 2 hours of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, only on KBLA Talk 1580.
The following is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways with the purpose of soliciting sales of vacation ownership. For complete details, please visit fvgradio.com. If you want a 100% complimentary stay at a luxury resort in Cancun, airfare not included, then Family Vacation Getaways is your ticket to paradise. See website for complete details. We're giving away 5 days and 4 nights to the first 50 callers who can name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. An animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. Do you know it? Call now, 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431. You're also eligible for an exciting bonus vacation to Orlando, Florida for just $498. And don't worry about anything ruining your plans. We can extend your travel up to 18 months. Name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird, and get a complimentary Cancun resort stay and an optional bonus vacation to Orlando for just $498. What are you waiting for? Call 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431, and give us your answer. The proceeding is not a contest and is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways and not sponsored by this program or its affiliates.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice: continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
During this time, it's important for everyone to know your rights. The 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments in the U.S. Constitution protects every one of us, regardless of immigration status. The 4th Amendment requires a judicial warrant to search your home. The 5th protects your right to remain silent. And the 6th gives you the right to an attorney. Just remember,
no warrant, no key. My privacy. You don't have to speak. No lawyer inside. Don't say your thing. Yeah, we all got right.
Hey, we all got right. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest in this hour is none other than our regular contributor, Ernest Krim. Ernest, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thanks for having me back. We're having a very important and timely conversation and discussion now.
Ernest is my favorite millennial, a young man whom I have great expectations for to lead our people one day out of the wilderness that we find ourselves in. President Donald Trump called out 5 cities across the United States as he discussed his decision to formally declare a public safety emergency in Washington, D.C., triggering a federal takeover of the city's police department. Trump's remarks insinuated that Baltimore, Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, and Oakland could face similar efforts from his administration, with the president saying the effort to address crime and homelessness in the U.S. would go further, as he specifically named the cities. Why the blue cities, Ernest? Why is he Why is every time he tries to distract from a personal problem, does it feel like it hits us harder than it hits anyone else? And I specifically mean us as African Americans. It just looks like as soon as the liberals come after Donald Trump for his personal behaviors, from Ghislaine Maxwell to the Epstein files, he just finds a group of Negroes somewhere to beat the hell out of. Why does it that way?
You know, it's like, oh, it's not me. I didn't do anything. Look at the black person. They're the problem. They're the problem. No, not me, the white guy. It's them. It's them. Like it's seriously fit. I as a historian, like a history teacher, I just see the same playbook used over and over, and it's mind-boggling because that's essentially what has been done since the colonial period. If there's class solidarity amongst different groups of people, those who have the wealth, and we're talking primarily it's been white men in this country, they will throw that in there to distract people. Oh no, it's not me that's disenfranchising you. It's the black person who has not been able to gain any wealth in this country. That's the issue. They're the problem. Look at them. We're talking about the files. We're talking about this fascist state that we see unfolding. And he keeps pointing at these blue cities, not just because they're blue, but many of them are led by black men. There's black leadership. And a lot of these cities are doing things that are in direct opposition to him first, but then also too, they're finding success with violent crime being down in many of these cities from Baltimore to Chicago and so on and so forth. And these are sanctuary cities too. These are cities that are welcoming migrants in this area. Regardless of all the flack they may have caught locally, they welcome the people in, which seems to be the antithesis of what he wants. And isn't it funny that the party that is so called for personal rights and personal liberties and states' rights would exercise this type of federal overreach? It's the same party that wants your kids to think in school that the Civil War was about states' rights. But it's only about states' rights when it's about disenfranchising people, especially us.
That's the history. I mean, that's why Ernest Krim III is my favorite millennial. I mean, that's not an oration from notes. That's what he knows. It's what he studies. It's what he takes with him into the classroom every day. It's what he takes with him when he arrives at the voting booth. All of that information matters when you make a decision about who to vote for and who not to vote for. Those are the facts. That's the culmination of a free mind, of a free black man's mind who can think. That's what it sounds like. Now, Ernest, I do have this question, however, because our liberal friends right now, from my perspective, are unusually quiet about the federal takeover of the District of Columbia. We don't hear much from, really, in my opinion, I've not heard it yet from Democrats in the Senate. I've not heard much from our liberal friends in the House of Representatives. Several governors want to be president of the United States, but I don't hear them pushing back against this federal takeover. We've got other governors who, as a result of Governor Abbott in Texas's move against the Voting Rights Act of 1965, are now threatening their own version of it, without mentioning that they would have to unpack minority districts to create more conservative Democrats. That's the reality. So, right down the middle of this history is this black line that is our history. And we get to observe it, right? But we also, at the appropriate time, get to intervene in it and hold the line on what constitutes justice, because neither side, I feel like the Avatar. I see you. I see you. It's like neither side can see us.
Yeah, to me, it feels as though, from especially those who are in power, there's a certain level of comfortability that they have that doesn't seem to make these issues as urgent of a matter to them as they are to the people on the grassroots level. We are talking about issues now that are between life and death for us. This is our livelihood. These are people hopping out of SUVs, unmarked cars, who are disappearing people. Again, what we have seen happen to migrants who Latino and Black and otherwise is now happening to us, or it was already happening, so I should say. It's the cycle of it all. But under this administration, it's now happening to us. The target of DC, that's against us. right now. And I think that when we consider, why some maybe still would support him, and I know some people who look like me and otherwise who supported him prior to the election and said they were going to vote for him and all those type of nonsense. I think that there's so much pride that people have in making their decision, and pride in not wanting to admit that they were wrong. And there's so much grandstanding that I don't understand not being able to call out something regardless of your party affiliation when somebody does something wrong. This is not a representation of what anybody who claims to be for America and a democracy should be for. But you see so many people making excuses for it. And it just rings of this allegiance, this unmitigated allegiance to what we refer to as white supremacy, but what often comes across, like my good friend John Graham says, is white insecurity. There has to be, I understand there are a lot of things going on right now, but for the congressional members on the Democratic side who have not yet decided to speak up, everybody has a role to play. And what I hate to see, though, so often it seems as though those of us, Black folks especially, who are the minority in Congress, are often the ones who are put on the front lines of these issues without any type of support. Who's going to take this on? Everybody has a role to play, and they have to be front and center on this on the political end. We have to exercise every avenue we can legally to confront this and contest this. And the community on a grassroots level has to do the same, but it doesn't feel like it's validated unless we have that voice speaking out. And I think that's what we're missing right now. I would like to be optimistic, Brother Jesse, and say, well, maybe because it's still very early, that maybe because it just happened. People are trying to, put pieces together, but the time is now. Some type of statement must be made for us to reassure us.
I'm somewhat bewildered by what is taking place, the absence of certain voices. And I even woke up this morning saying to myself that what's taking place in Texas, maybe we're taking the wrong tact. And I know I just have a minute, so let me say this. Methinks Democrats should not react to Abbott's mid-decennial gerrymandering scheme by opening up their state plans to comply with the Voting Rights Act. Methinks states should enter into a lawsuit together against the state of Texas, defending the Voting Rights Act. Let that be the issue. If the Supremes see the Democrats willing to join Republicans' mid-decennial gerrymander, the Supremes will strike down the Voting Rights Act and blame the Democrats. We need to be plaintiffs in Texas against what Texas is doing, not adjusting or conceding the Voting Rights Act in our states, playing a game that could undermine our representation. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, more with Ernest Krim on KBLA Talk 1580.
Cancer, the three words no one wants to hear. Of the cancers that impact our community, lung cancer is the most dangerous. More people succumb to lung cancer than colon, breast, and prostate combined. Black men are 12% more likely to develop lung cancer, and cases for Black women are rising. Early detection and comprehensive treatment is the best way to beat this dreaded disease. Providence is a research leader in multi-cancer early detection, offering blood tests that identify fast-spreading cancers that don't show symptoms in early stages. The Providence Los Angeles Integrated Network Cancer Program determines best protocols for each patient, interacting with specialists who share experiences, perspectives, and new findings specific to each case. With over 1,000 board-certified physicians, including top oncologists, surgeons, radiologists, and nurse specialists, Providence delivers whole-person care that understands your culture, values, preferences, and priorities. So, if you hear the words, "you have cancer," all you need is faith and providence.org/cancer.
During this time, it's important for everyone to know your rights. The 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments in the U.S. Constitution protects every one of us, regardless of immigration status. The 4th Amendment requires a judicial warrant to search your home. The 5th protects your right to remain silent, and the 6th gives you the right to an attorney. Just remember,
No warrant, no key. My privacy. You don't have to speak. No lawyer inside. Don't say a thing. Yeah, we all got rights. Hey, we all got rights.
Nearly 7 million Americans aged 65 and older are living with Alzheimer's disease, or AD. But did you know that Black adults aged 65 and older are twice as likely as white adults to develop AD? You may be able to reduce your risk by managing conditions like diabetes and high blood pressure, being physically active, eating healthy, and exercising your mind. To learn more about AD, the importance of early diagnosis and intervention, and a potential treatment option, visit treatalzearly.com. That's treatalzearly.com. This message is brought to you by AZI.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about. KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Los Angeles Regional Food Bank is on a mission to fight hunger and provide nutritious food to those in need across our community. They partner with federal, state, and local programs advocating for better policies and funding for critical hunger relief programs like Cal Fresh, the Emergency Food Assistance Program, and the Child and Adult Care Food Program. The food bank works with coalitions and local representatives to make sure hunger is addressed in every district of LA County. They also run nutrition education campaigns, raise hunger awareness, and source nutritious food for distribution, all while supporting regulations that allow food pantries to operate safely. Want to help? Visit lafoodbank.org or call 323-234-3030 to volunteer or find a food bank near you. Together, we can ensure that no one goes hungry in Los Angeles County. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
This is Secret Clinical dominating extra stinky stress sweat. And this is regular deodorant. Secret Clinical in a heat wave. Oh, what a beautiful day. This is regular deodorant. Ugh, I can't. Secret Clinical with workout sweat. Let's run another marathon. And regular deodorant. How much more? Secret is the GOAT because nothing fights sweat better. Stay fresher under pressure.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA 1580. Ernest, welcome forward onto the show.
Thanks again for having me, brother.
Ernest Krim III has created content for companies such as HBO, Hulu, Disney, Paramount, and the History Channel. Additionally, he is the CEO of Krim's Cultural Consulting, LLC, an international speaker who's spoken at Harvard University, the University of Chicago, Microsoft, Colin Kaepernick's Know Your Rights Camp, and audiences in the United Kingdom and Canada. The author of 2 books and a passionate progressive education activist who's worked closely with organizations to advocate for educational and political equity, reparations, mental health awareness, and food justice. Ernest, we're really glad to have you on our program today. You know, what is the millennial thinking on this question of the overreach of federal power and the unwillingness of the other branches of government to hold the president of the United States accountable?
I would say, just of seeing this for a half a day or so and going based on my own feelings as well, I think that millennials, again, going back to some of our previous conversations too, we have a distrust for those in power. We understand that there's a need to participate, but we have a genuine distrust already. So we already, in a sense, are wondering if they could have done something to prevent it more, would they have done something more? So from what I'm seeing now, just the conversations I've scrolled past, there seems to be this feeling of we have to do our best ourselves as best we can to mobilize our efforts. But then, of course, you also have folks who, in any generation, any group that are apathetic to this and probably won't be as concerned until it literally is knocking down or coming down their block, knocking on their door, which we see now is the intention, right? But I think that there's already a distrust. We have seen on a grassroots level, Jesse, politicians who speak a certain way, who appear to be grassroots, who appear to be, for the people when they're coming up the ranks, and then when they get elected, it seems as if they've changed completely or decided not to speak out on the same issues that got them to that point. So it's really like, well, what can we do ourselves? Because we don't think they'll do anything anyway. But on that same token, when those politicians do speak up, I don't feel as though we often give them the credit they deserve, because unfortunately, those who are bold enough to do such a thing are often by themselves on an island.
You know what? I think that, let me tell you what I observed. I watched, outside of government, a bartender become a member of Congress. And I mean, she came in there with all of the vivaciousness, all of the energy, all of the excitement, all of the right stuff on healthcare, housing, and education, and tips and everything else. And now she's becoming increasingly a part of the establishment. I think she still maintains some of her flair for what is right, her youthful idealism, but that operating and working the institution itself changes you, right? The institution itself. Now, I see a lot of millennials with a lot of energy. They're very excited. They want to do right. They've heard the call, but they don't necessarily go there with, a history, an understanding of the nuances of all that it took to get to that moment that they are there. And therefore, shortly thereafter getting there, rather than advocating for the idealism that you suggest got them there, they end up regurgitating the Democratic Party's talking points, which are given to them first thing in the morning from people who've been writing them all night long. And then they hand them to all of the Democrats, and they expect those Democrats to toe the party line. That is, all of the things they saw that needed to be fixed when they were running for office, when they got there, they became institutionalized to get to where they ultimately want to go. And suddenly the things that they remembered from where they were mean less. Does that kind of make sense to you, Brother Krim?
Definitely. And as you were speaking, I thought of a sister named Cori Bush, I believe is her name. And she was someone, and again, I don't know every single thing she's voted on, but on the outside looking in, being outside her district, it seemed as if coming from that Ferguson struggle, she was staying true to a lot of the things that she ran on. And they decided, the establishment ran somebody against her. And that's where we have to come in as people and say that we can't be fooled by them trying to have somebody come in who's not going to actually speak up for us in the manner that we want. Times are too trying right now for us to have somebody that's going to play the middle with a status quo. You know, like it's almost like this quote, and I'm probably gonna mess it up a little bit, but like there's no such thing as neutral teaching. You know, as an educator, I am not a giver of neutrality. I am choosing the side of justice on everything. And when I was in that classroom for 12 years, that is exactly what it was. You can label me whatever party you want to, but the fact of the matter is I'm on the side of the people. I'm on the side of justice and what benefits us as folks in our community and the broader humanity as a whole. And until we have people in power who are willing to commit to that, then we're going to see people do that. It's like, you know, the interview phase. These politicians oftentimes will impress us as people during the interview, and then they get the job and forgot everything that they said. It's not just us whose livelihood is at stake because of this presidency. It is them too, and they have to realize that.
I think no truer words have been spoken. We only have about a minute and a half left before the hard stop at the top of the hour. Your thoughts, a word of hope from Ernest Krim III.
Oh man, you put me on the spot with that one. I knew you were going to give it to me, but asking for a word of hope. I would just tell people, you know, when I speak to audiences, my main go-to at all times is to say that our people, especially during the period of enslavement, sisters like Harriet Tubman, brothers like Richard Allen, they did not care who the president was. They did what was necessary in that moment. And I want us to, sometimes we have to take the time to breathe in deeply and not look at the bigger picture. Let's just focus in on this moment and think about what we can do that is most necessary. I recall being so discombobulated when George Floyd was murdered in 2020. And the thing that got me moving forward, though, was to say, what's happening right here that I need to do to help my community out?
Ernest Krim is an Emmy-nominated producer, public school teacher, anti-racist educator. He's always asking the question, what's love got to do with it? Common unity, community, common unity. What are we going to be and what are we going to accomplish together? I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This has been another great hour on KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, it is Moving Mountain Mondays with Dr. Teresa Hord Owens, author of Staying at the Table. When we come forward on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. The NYPD's Quality of Life Division is now active across all of Queens after launching in April and expanding to Brooklyn, the Bronx, and Manhattan. Teams target illegal mopeds, abandoned vehicles, encampments, outdoor drug use, and noise complaints.
And every New York deserves to live in a neighborhood that is safe from gun violence, has clean streets, and is free from illegal activities.
Black Mayor Eric Adams says the effort has already led to hundreds of seizures and faster response times. President Trump is taking control of Washington, D.C.'s police as part of a crime crackdown, calling today the city's Liberation Day. He's deploying the National Guard with the military on standby and criticized Black Mayor Muriel Bowser's efforts, claiming crime is worse than in Baghdad. And today marks 60 years since the Watts riot in Los Angeles. The unrest began in 1965 after police pulled over 21-year-old Black motorist Marquette Fry. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice: continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
Is this the time? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The LA Sparks got another W Sunday night. The Sparks' 94-91 win last night over the Seattle Storm is their 10th win in the last 13 games. Tarika Hamby converted a layup with 5.6 seconds left in the fourth quarter to seal it. The Sparks at 15-16 have a chance to reach 500 for the first time since May 18th. They play the defending WNBA champs, the New York Liberty, Tuesday night at Crypto.com Arena. The Chargers are 2-0 in the preseason after beating New Orleans 27-13. The star of the game was Chargers rookie cornerback Eric Rodgers from Rutgers. Rodgers had 2 interceptions. He ran back one 43 yards for a touchdown. The Chargers play the Rams Saturday afternoon at SoFi. Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford is scheduled to practice Monday for the first time in training camp if he's healthy. Stafford is trying to recover from a slip disc in his lower back. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we aim to foster enlightening, sustainable, restorative dialogue, and we welcome unapologetically progressive viewpoints that empower fellow citizens. We are now accepting submissions for KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorials like this one.
With the KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorial, I'm Martin Gordon, chair of the Pasadena Community Coalition. Recently, I listened to a Tavis Smiley Show conversation with James Farr. James said something that caught me off guard. Black Altadena is gone. My community is being murdered. I said murdered.
All you have to do is go to our website homepage at kbla1580.com and click on the icon that says KBLA Guest Editorials to learn more about our editorial standards and content submission guidelines. As long as the topic aligns with our mission, we are happy to review your submission and consider it for broadcast. We can't make any promises, but we want to amplify progressive perspectives that are community-focused and solution-oriented. So go to KBLA1580.com right now to download all the information you need about our guest editorials. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Forward to the show on KBLA Talk 1580. Moving Mountain Mondays, The Faith Not to Fall with Reverend Terry Howard Owens on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Reverend Terry Howard Owens is the president and general minister of the Disciples of Christ in Canada and the U.S. Reverend Terry Howard Owens joins me to dive into the role of faith, community, and stepping up to the challenges of being not only what we say we are, but who we are ultimately within the very fiber of who we are as a people. Dr. Owens's new book, Staying at the Table, scheduled for release just this past July 12th, which serves as a push for all believers to shun the hypocrisy that critics may assign to the church in exchange for a unity born from love, a vision to talk, to serve, to work together, to fight for the cause of Jesus. Dr. Owens, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, Congressman. As always, I've enjoyed listening into the previous conversation and look forward to deeper conversation.
Dr. Owens, the idea that the President of the United States not only is not expanding democracy by supporting statehood for the citizens of the District of Columbia, where they would have one voting representative, Eleanor Holmes Norton, in the Congress, and 2 United States senators. I think the same thing can be said of Puerto Rico. They could have 1 United States congressman and 2 United States senators based on the distribution of population in the last 10 censuses of the that's 100 years or so. Yeah. So this idea of expanding democracy is absolutely on the retreat. Dr. Owens.
It really is. And it's happening without a lot of pushback and with a great deal of capitulation. I think that's perhaps been the most disturbing thing, is not even so much the actions that Trump has undertaken in this second term, but there is even less resistance and even more capitulation from those in his party, and even those, as you've been mentioning, in the Democratic Party and in the general public at large. It's almost as though, well, he's the president, he gets to do that, or elections matter. What's falling apart is our understanding of the actual rule of law. We grew up in a generation where civil rights were secured through legal means, right? We were in the courts. No people in the United States has ever taken the Constitution as seriously as Black people. We were using every jot and tittle and claiming our rights there. Sojourner Truth said, I love this Constitution, but it's got a little weasel in it, and we've got to get that out. But we're watching courts, federal courts, federal appeals courts, Supreme Court, all rule in ways that are affirming this huge expansion of executive power and are diminishing and disrupting civil and human rights that our generation grew up believing had been hard fought and hard won by our ancestors. And so now I'm in the position of, I've got a 2.5-year-old grandson. I'm in the position of fighting and working so that these rights are not beyond his grasp. I mean, it's just a serious upheaval, a shift, a clawing back, and then an environment of a lack of resistance and over capitulation by people who are literally putting themselves and their own financial gain above what's good for the country. The only reason to capitulate to Trump, if you're afraid as a person who is in the Republican Party and you're in a red district, et cetera, the only way that you are capitulating is because you care more about being reelected than you do about what's right. You care more about the gain that you're experiencing than you do about the justice that you came or that you said you came to advocate. It's disturbing on so many levels. It's evil. I've quit trying to be nice about it and trying to find other euphemistic things to label it. Immoral. Yes, it's all of that. But sometimes you just have to get kind of black and white and name a thing. It's evil. It's just evil.
I think we got that from Aubrey Hendricks last week.
Yes. I was shouting in my seat when he said that.
Give the demon a name. Let me ask you a question. I know we're going to come forward in the next segment and talk about it. You brought up this idea that Black people love the Constitution. No people have worked the Constitution more. It's so ironic that on September 17th, 1787, a group of men in Philadelphia, all white men, no white women, would sit around and debate the structure of the government of the United States. And yes, they did put something in the Constitution called the finger of God. There is no doubt about that. I'm convinced of that. It's a literary word construction. It's there. Yeah. But throughout the history, it is the very people who are not allowed in the room who've been fighting for the document. Yeah. Its core, its amendments, and its changes. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. I want to explore with Reverend Dr. Teresa Hoard Owens the deeper meaning, the faith that underlies the Constitution and why we turned to it and others have turned their back on it. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Coverage varies by plan. View contracts and exclusions at endurancewarranty.com.
This is an announcement to all United States vehicle owners who own a 2003 or newer vehicle with a manufacturer's warranty about to expire or no warranty coverage at all. With a struggling economy and the cost of living on the rise, Endurance is now offering an affordable, low-cost vehicle coverage plan to the general public. As of today, you could be one of millions of drivers that now may qualify to have your vehicle protected under this coverage and have all future covered auto repairs paid directly to the repair shop for you. You pick your plan. You pick your deductible. You even pick the repair shop. Roadside service, towing, and rental coverage is included. Get your vehicle protected now and save your wallet from costly vehicle repairs. A toll-free number has been established for you to call for your free 5-minute quote and to see if you qualify. The number to call is 800-290-6207. 800-290-6207. Again, that's 800-290-6207.
Sometimes an identity threat is a ring of professional hackers, and sometimes it's an overworked accountant. who forgot to encrypt their connection while sending bank details.
I need a coffee.
And you need LifeLock because your info is in endless places. It only takes one mistake to expose you to identity theft. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS at lifelock.com. Terms apply.
You're still glowing, flirting, grooving. You still got it. But your immune system weakens as you age, making it harder to fight flu, pneumococcal pneumonia, RSV, and COVID-19. Vaccines are a key part of any health routine and help strengthen your immune response. Ask your doctor or pharmacist which vaccines you need. Schedule in minutes at vaxassist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. In this hour, my very special guest is none other than Teresa Ward Owens. She is a doctor and a minister and the president and general minister of the Disciples of Christ Church, both here in the United States and Canada. Reverend Owens, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Oh, thanks as always. It's always a treat to be part of a conversation on Mondays.
Reverend Owens, I want to go a little deeper on this question of our faith. Now, on September 17, 1787, it's a group of white men in Philadelphia, Liberty Hall, arguing, fighting, debating back and forth the structure of the republic, the government of the United States, would become the federal government, recognizing that there were states and territories who all had representatives there, battling over their respective interests.
Yeah.
Now, we weren't allowed at that meeting. White women weren't allowed at that meeting. A black woman who's the president of a major denomination in the United States wouldn't have been allowed at that meeting. Probably nowhere near the meeting, in fact. You better not be anywhere near that meeting. And how 250 years later, the very rules that crushed us, either through the federal government or the state government, through the federalism system, how we find ourselves decades later, 2.5 centuries later, defending the document and the rules, demanding that white men follow the rules that white men put together, that we amended the processes that allowed us to participate in the structure of the government itself and in the country as a whole, in the nation. They don't want to follow the very rules that we've all been following since the inception of the republic. And it ain't like we can make them either.
Right. Part
of it. Reverend Owens, we have faith in a flawed document, and yet we still endure. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and it's always been flawed, right? It's never really fully been all that it needs to be, even with the Voting Rights Amendment, the Civil Rights Act that are 64 and 65 respectively, or the other way around. I think Civil Rights Act 64, Voting Rights Act 65. Those things have been torn apart by what I'll call the discretionary authority of the Supreme Court. And I lay these failures squarely at their feet and fully at their feet by, number one, removing the requirement for federal oversight. And I think we didn't understand fully at the time how important that was, because you were talking with Ernest earlier about states' rights and how we always turn to states' rights when we're trying to avert compliance with something that people feel is safe and just. If it doesn't align either with your higher values or with your economic interests, we cry states' rights. But if the federal government does not have the ability to oversee and ensure that the states were actively enforcing those voter rights laws and those civil rights laws, the whole thing falls apart, because, as Dr. King said, I can't legislate your heart. All I can do is give you or insist that you behave in a way and behave in accordance with rules that will affirm my own dignity and my humanity. And even though we say, and your reference to there being a finger of God and there being this almost, expectation that the people who served in government, the white men who served in government, would be those of high moral character. I've heard some analysts say, well, there wasn't enough in the Constitution to put more of a check on the president's power, because the idea that somebody so fundamentally immoral and flawed as Donald Trump would ever be in the office. So then I think we have to ask ourselves questions about, what does it mean to vote in our interests? Pollsters will say, well, people were voting because of prices and economic issues and sensitivity. We can't just be one issue voters. We have to be thinking citizens. We have to be people who engage with news and information. And we have to be people who speak up and demand from our elected officials those things that are necessary. So I think it's we've gone from a certain kind of inequitable society where we grounded the injustice in our view of God, a very colonial view of God, that God had established, the Western white man on a higher level, the whole doctrine of discovery, that we have the right to take lands where the name of gospel of Jesus needs to be proclaimed. And now we're operating in a place where we're not even pretending that faith is at the heart of this now. That slow dog whistle that I'm always talking about of racism that Trump extends really to lower income whites who really have more in common with people of color than they're willing to admit. We've kind of let morality go by the wayside, and we've allowed somebody to talk us into a very narrow understanding of what our self-interests are. And there's so many layers to it. It's hard to name a single cause for what's happening, but we have to be vigilant as in the midst of the chaos they're trying to create. We have to be vigilant about understanding how those layers go together and really trying to get at the root of some of this.
Madam President, the church itself, and no one knows it better than you, is divided.
Mm-hmm.
Divided largely upon an inability to agree on the word itself, on the Bible itself. Aubrey Hendricks, Walter Fluker, Howard Thurman, yourself, Bob Franklin, Michael Dyson, Cornel West, myself, we all agree on one interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. King's interpretation, by and large, William Barber's interpretation, by and large.
Mm-hmm.
But when we hand our same Bible to Billy Graham and look at the same words, it becomes a different Bible to the evangelical. Now, I'm not hanging around the church as much as I'm trying to say that theoretically we bought into this idea that there is an agreement by all of us upon the power of the Constitution of the United States.
Yeah.
Now, if we can look at the Constitution of the United States and both sides see two different things,
yeah,
then there's no basis. There can never be a basis for agreement, except I'm reminded, as our ancestors spoke to this issue so clearly, when they read the book, everybody talking about heaven ain't going
there. Yeah.
How do we take half of the country that looks at the Constitution of the United States and does not see your freedom or even your right to be, Madam President?
Mm-hmm. And I think this is where the church really has to stand up and, as I'm saying, actually be the church that we say we are, and not just mottos and platitudes and working to, we want to get our numbers back up. We want people to come to be in the building on Sunday morning, and we're concerned about participation in worship club basically on Sunday, without preparing ourselves to leave and do the work that the gospel demands. It's going to take, I think, a faithful few who will take this work seriously, who will really understand that the commandment to love one's neighbor has to be taken out to its farthest logical conclusion. And that means that what I want for myself, I want for you, and I'm willing to work to make that world a reality, a world where you and I both get everything that we need. I'm here in Calgary at the United Church of Canada's General Conference. It is their triennial decision-making conference. And they are a full communion partner with my denomination, the Disciples of Christ. And in Canada, their number one justice issue is justice for Indigenous peoples. And they create a time when the elders from their Indigenous nations can speak to the church. And one of them said, I look at a country like Denmark, she said, Canada, North America, people claim to have these values of equal citizenship and equity. And she said in Denmark, and I haven't fact checked this, but she said, on one hand, in one house, you might have somebody who's a janitor or a teacher. The next house, you may have somebody who's a doctor. And the disparity between those two people will not be that vast. And there is this value of being able to be safe at home. And what she said is, she quoted a book called The Blue Zones. And she said Denmark was kind of lifted up as this place where she saw native values, indigenous values of community and caring and sharing, and there not being inequity among what you have or how you operate being operated. So there's some values that so many of our societies have clung to that we have allowed colonialism, capitalism, and not that there's anything wrong with capitalism. I'm probably more concerned about colonialism and the stain of racism that it's left around the world and the stain of inequity. And it's all been done in the name of Jesus. And so we have to uproot that and really reclaim Jesus in terms of who Jesus really is and what Jesus really meant. Jesus was a radical. He was not intending to lift up those who already had wealth and power. He cared about the poor, the least, people who were marginalized and not recognized in society. That's the Jesus. And the church has an opportunity to speak in this moment, but we have to quit being so concerned about our own institutions and be more concerned about the impact we can have on the society in which we live, because that's the real value that we bring, not how wonderful worship is on Sunday morning, but the witness and the work that we can do, aligning ourselves with community leaders, aligning ourselves with politicians, not to endorse politicians, but to align ourselves, a common cause, as I say, not common belief. You don't have to believe as I do theologically for us to agree that people need to eat, that people need to have a decent education, that people need to have full access to the vote. We don't need to have theological arguments in order to agree on what's good for humanity.
I want to go in this moment to Fannie Lou Hamer when she said that we can pray until we faint.
Yeah.
But if we don't work and do something,
right,
it ain't gonna do nothing.
You gotta pray with your feet.
Marcus Garvey said we must give up on the silly idea that to ask God to do everything while we do nothing is not faith, but it's ludicrous.
Yeah.
And Dr. King says, of course, that to ask God to do everything while we do nothing is not faith, but superstition. I have to come to that in this moment because it seems to me that somehow the action that we take, let me try and say it another way. The rules are changing. And I thought with everything that we've been through in the last 200 days of the Donald Trump administration, maybe we would win the House. Maybe Jesus would intervene in this process through the people in the form of we've had enough. So why am I engaging this voting rights struggle at this hour? Because the rules are changing. And the Jesus that I serve, if these rules change in the middle of the decennial period, the middle of a decade, something we've never done before, I'm afraid Jesus may lose. The intervention I've been waiting for could be undermined by the rules changes of men.
Yeah.
And so when you say step up, I mean, we have to give our faith a little bit of a boost in this period.
Yeah. Yeah.
With some righteous indignation, with some protests, with some hell no, we won't go.
Right.
Madam
And,
President.
and many of us are showing up in lots of places in DC. If you looked at my expense report since the inauguration, you will see I've clocked a whole lot of time in DC. Even the press conference this morning about the quote unquote federal takeover, you know, I pay attention to that stuff because I'm likely to be there, in the next week or so. But stepping up is, we've prayed on the steps of Capitol, right, with senators, and we had them read scripture, and we did prayer vigils all through Lent in front of the White House and in the little side lawn next to the Capitol that's right there near the Methodist building. Lots of us have been in and out. But the real thing, if people don't show up to vote and actually make this change, and I think that's at the heart of some of this apathy, do we have to have a black man on the ballot to get black people out to the ballot? I'm part of the 92%, right, of black women who voted for Kamala. But what's the full percentage of black women who voted? The electorate this time was 71% white. And of that, 71% of white women voted for Trump, voted against their own interests, theoretically. Poor people who are considered low wealth and low income were among those who did not vote. William Barber always makes the argument that if we can reach the poor to let them know that their vote, their franchise matters, and we can get them to really understand, and there are actually more poor white people in terms of numbers than there are poor people of color. And that's where that dog whistle of racism and that dog whistle that says they're stepping on your back on their way up, and so you've got to take your country back. They don't understand that they have common cause with us and need to get out and vote. There is a campaign called Faiths United to Save Democracy that comes out of the Skinner Institute, led by Reverend Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner, trying to get chaplains, clergy, and people to not only get out and register, but to prepare to be a presence at the polls to ensure there aren't voter ID issues, there aren't voter suppression issues. So there are some moves that I see the organized church taking in order to really do some concrete things to boost the whole issue of voting and getting people to the polls.
Barbara Williams Skinner, boy, that's a blast from the past. And her husband, what a ministry together. Had in retreat, helping ministers think through liberation theology and a path for action. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest in this hour is none other than Reverend Dr. Teresa Hort Owens when we come forward on KBLA.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Broward School's Black Superintendent Dr. Howard Hepburn in Florida says the new school year is off to a smooth start.
It's a great day, a great first day of school.
Changes include 4 elementary schools becoming K-8 academies and a teacher vacancy rate under 2%. Security remains a priority. Rapper Snoop Dogg's Death Row Records cannabis is now in Ohio, available at Pure Ohio wellness locations in Dayton and London. A wider statewide rollout is coming soon. And the House Oversight Committee will hold a September hearing with D.C. officials after President Trump announced federal control of the city's police and plans to deploy the National Guard. GOP Chair James Comer says the panel will meet with Attorney General Brian Schwab, Council Chair Phil Mickelson, and Black Mayor Muriel Bowser. It's unclear if the move was coordinated with local leaders. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice: continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man.
Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford was supposed to make his first appearance on the practice field today, but he did not. Stafford was on the sidelines again in street clothes. The 37-year-old Stafford has been diagnosed with a slipped disc in his lower back. At the moment, the Rams don't know if Stafford will be healthy for the Rams season opener September 7th against Houston. Cleveland Browns coach Kevin Stefanski said he will decide on Wednesday or Thursday on who his starting quarterback will be for Saturday's preseason game at Philadelphia. Browns quarterback Shedeur Sanders is the talk of the NFL preseason after his impressive start Friday at Carolina. Deion's son led 3 touchdown drives in the Browns' 30-10 win. Sanders capped 2 of the scoring drives with touchdown passes, and he had no interceptions. Things are starting to get very interesting in Cleveland. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
During this time, it's important for everyone to know your rights. The 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments in the U.S. Constitution protects every one of us, regardless of immigration status. The 4th Amendment requires a judicial warrant to search your home. The 5th protects your right to remain silent, and the 6th gives you the right to an attorney. Just remember,
No warrant, no key. My privacy. You don't have to speak. No lawyer inside. Don't say a thing. Yeah, we all got rights.
Hey, we all got rights. The following is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways with the purpose of soliciting sales of vacation ownership. For complete details, please visit fvgradio.com. If you want a 100% complimentary stay at a luxury resort in Cancun, airfare not included, then Family Vacation Getaways is your ticket to paradise. See website for complete details. We're giving away 5 days and 4 nights to the first 50 callers who can name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. An animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. Do you know it? Call now, 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431. You're also eligible for an exciting bonus vacation to Orlando, Florida for just $498. And don't worry about anything ruining your plans. We can extend your travel up to 18 months. Name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird, and get a complimentary Cancun resort stay and an optional bonus vacation to Orlando for just $498. What are you waiting for? Call 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431, and give us your answer. The proceeding is not a contest and is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways and not sponsored by this program or its affiliates.
Chronic migraine, 15 or more headache days a month, each lasting 4 hours or more, can make me feel like a spectator in my own life.
Botox, onabotulinum toxin A, prevents headaches in adults with chronic migraine. It's not for those with 14 or fewer headache days a month. It's the #1 prescribed branded chronic migraine preventive treatment.
Prescription Botox is injected by your doctor. Effects of Botox may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away, as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness can be signs of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Side effects may include allergic reactions, neck and injection site pain, fatigue, and headache. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Don't receive Botox if there's a skin infection. Tell your doctor your medical history, muscle or nerve conditions, including ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects.
Why wait? Ask your doctor, visit BotoxChronicMigraine.com, or call 1-800-44-BOTOX to learn more.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. It is Moving Mountain Mondays with Teresa Hort Owens, the faith not to fall on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Pastor Owens, Reverend Dr. General Minister and President. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Oh, thanks for having me. These Mondays are good for my soul, I tell you.
Madam President, I do have some soul-wrenching questions here, and one of them is about the Constitution itself.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to me that we keep hearing in the news, and I think you've talked about it in previous programs, that we are either in or heading to a constitutional crisis. And towards that end, I would have more faith in the Constitution if it could deliver for my children a better public school.
Yeah.
Public school of equal high quality, Olympic-sized swimming pools, tennis courts, all of their after-school activities right there at the school, whatever my son wants to do or wanted to do. My daughter wanted to do ballet, fencing, whatever, the best of math, the best of Latin, French, English, whatever courses she wanted to take. I really wish that were the definition of a public school.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have to spend money on a private education.
Right.
Because the public school would have all of these things. And if I could go to the Constitution and force my state's legislature to build that for me right here in my neighborhood, I would have faith in the Constitution as an individual. And that's true of my healthcare, by the way. If I could turn to my Constitution and say, you know what, I've got the rickets, I got the this, I got the that, I got the rheumatism, I got the rheumatoid, something wrong with me, but I got this thing called the right to healthcare of equal high quality. And wherever I go in America, this right follows me, and I can get sick in Chicago, sick in Los Angeles, sick in Baltimore, sick in Atlanta, sick anywhere, and I'm good to go because the best nurses, the best doctors are going to be there doing this thing, providing me with the best possible care on earth under a single standard. I would have faith in the Constitution.
Yeah.
It seems to me that both sides, liberal, conservative, Democrat, and Republican, have lost faith in something that we agreed on. Help me here, Reverend. Help me restore my faith in something.
Yeah. I have a little thing around my neck, a little silver bar that has Philippians 1:6. You talk about confidence. It says, I'm confident in this, that the one who began a good work in you will complete it by the day of Jesus Christ. My confidence is not in a whole lot other than God right now. But that said, I think these undergrad, I was a government political science major in college and a African-American studies minor. And my dad, as I've mentioned many times, is a Black studies professor. And the founding of our nation, as you know, was really the only people who were included in We the People at the beginning were property owners, white male property owners. And it's that understanding of property that has grounded so much of what we take for granted. It's why we value it. It's the secret to climbing the ladder, owning things, being able to amass things and property and real estate and money and investments. Black people were chattel, that we were property, and we had to break the definition of property around that in order to vote for constitutional amendments that both destroyed slavery, but even declared in the 14th Amendment that Black people were citizens, and that anybody born in the U.S. is a citizen. To amend it with Voting Rights Acts and amendments that should have been really not just Voting Rights Acts as legislations, but they gave us the vote, but didn't guarantee the protection of the vote in the Constitution. And I think your point about some of these things really needing to be codified are really important. We now tie everything, both healthcare and education, to how much property you have, right? In most states, the quality of the education is based on the value of your property.
Wow.
I have a friend, Black family, they live in Northbrook. The wife is from Texas. They had previously had their child in a very conservative Christian school in Northfield. I used to work out in that area when I was with IBM. And when they moved their child to public school, child gets issued a Chromebook every semester. like you say, Olympic-sized pool, all kinds of programs, math, science, chess club, band, orchestra, choir. And she said, wow, public schools are just really great. This is awesome. Public schools are doing more than the private Christian school I was paying for. I said, no, your property tax base here in Northbrook is providing this particular public school. If you go down south and look at Harper High School or other high schools in Inglewood and other parts of the South Side where the property tax values are not as great, our friend and pastor, Reverend James Meeks, when he was in the state Senate, helped students at New Trier, right, come and visit Harper High School. The kids themselves saw the huge disparities between what one had and the other did not have. And it's because we have not let go of that idea that property is what determines value and property is what determines access. And we talk about public education, with white flight from the cities. That's why we want charter schools, because we've left our property interests, and those who are left with least resources are at the mercy of what local school boards and local cities and even states want to do. So I think that property issue is still insidious in our system.
Madam President, I want to share with you that Reverend Meeks's experiment between Harper and New Trier in this moment was as profound as the Clark studies and the doll test.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, we need our ministers and our churches to find the equal high quality school and take a bus, not vitriolically, take a bus load of the students in the school where the least of these are on their best behavior and take them to the school for a tour where other students are enjoying in a public school all of these things.
Right, in a public school.
And then we need to take the children in this school, and as we bring them south or east or west or wherever we live, they need to be on their best behavior.
Yes, yeah.
So when they come and see what we don't have, not only can they better understand, but maybe we take both groups of students to dinner and have a conversation about the structural inadequacies in schooling alone. Just in schools alone.
In schooling alone, because if that aspect of our children's lives is not equitable, you were talking about, Walter and I joked, it was like, if I have to mop floors, our son Mitchell was going to be in a private school, because that was the best way that we could assure his access to certain things that we wanted him to have. Walter and I, who both went to public schools, and, I say this to people all the time. Our ancestors, my grandparents, fought for things. They thought we would be the children of the promise, right? And here we are still fighting for our kids and grandkids. But that inequity, if it starts in education and what you're exposed to and what resources you have, I've mentored kids and taken them downtown. They've never been downtown, never seen what downtown looks like, never experienced the whole city, don't even know what the resources are like. Exposure and access to options and opportunity. If that doesn't start to happen in public schools, then our society is immediately inequitable, and the kids can never really catch up.
I went to a private school at my parents' suggestion in Washington, D.C. when my dad was running for president. He was in Washington more than he was in Chicago. And then when I had my own children and got elected to Congress, in this moment, I went to 6 different public schools in Washington, D.C. And my wife and I at that time made the judgment that our children belonged in a decent private school because of the facilities.
Yes, yes.
And then, paying for their private tuition, the rest for me was history.
Yes.
Just the times what it was. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. When we come forward, more with Reverend Dr. Terry Ford Owens.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues? Who are you? Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
An official message from Medicare.
I turned 65 this year. I knew it was time to figure out Medicare, and I had questions like when to enroll and how to enroll. So I went straight to the official source, Medicare.gov, to get the facts about Medicare. I found answers to all my questions, and I'm ready to get started. And so can you. Just go to Medicare.gov to get the real facts about Medicare.
Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
During this time, it's important for everyone to know your rights. The 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments in the U.S. Constitution protects every one of us, regardless of immigration status. The 4th Amendment requires a judicial warrant to search your home. The 5th protects your right to remain silent, and the 6th gives you the right to an attorney. Just remember,
No warrant, no key. My privacy. You don't have to speak. No lawyer inside. Don't say a thing. Yeah, we all got rights. Hey, we all got rights.
It's a classic odor tale. You fried fish for dinner, cleaned up, but the smell is still in the house. And the neighbors are coming over for game night. They're on their way. And then you spray Febreze Air Mist. Febreze Air starts working instantly to fight even your toughest odors, so you go from fish to fresh like that. Now, all you have to worry about is Pam cheating at charades.
Breathe happy, Febreze, la 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 la.
Y'all ready for Gillette's best shave? Try Gillette Labs with 5 ultra-thin blades, a built-in exfoliating bar, a precision trimmer on the back for sharp lineups. Gillette Labs delivers that smooth shave. Plus, and check this out, with one refill, you'll get up to 30 shaves. And on average, the blades last 50% longer than Gillette Fusion. Got something special coming up and you gotta look good? Check out Gillette Labs, the best a man can get. Gillette Labs also available in heated.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest in this hour is none other than the President and General Minister of the Disciples of Christ in Canada and the United States, Reverend Teresa Hort Owens. Madam President, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you so much, my friend. Always good to be here.
Madam President, before we get to our word of hope, which you know is pretty much the last 3 minutes of the program, we have about 7 minutes. Can you share with us some of the challenges that a multiracial congregation like the one that you lead are confronting at this hour?
Oh my goodness. You know, we are a predominantly white denomination, 80% Black, 80% white, 10% Black, about 7% Hispanic, and 3% Asian and Pacific Islander. And the Asian Pacific Islander community is really the fastest growing percentage-wise. Within that community, there are 19 different languages that are spoken. So it's a fascinating church. But we deal with the same kinds of polarization that you see across the U.S. And at the heart of some of the struggle is that people are still yielding the primacy of their faith to political categories. The whole issue with Christian nationalism, our church has spoken against it and opposed it, but we still have people who simply think, well, I'm a Christian and I love my country, so therefore what's wrong with being a Christian nationalist, and don't even begin to question issues of white supremacy, etc. So when you deal in an organization that's still predominantly white, part of the challenge that we have is getting beyond our colonial view, right? That says, oh, we're so excited, we're welcoming all these people to the table, and still subliminally thinking this is our table, right? Oh, we elected a Black woman to be our president, and then expecting that person to simply be a colorized version of what has gone before. Of inviting people to the table and not respecting their culture, their worship style, or even the variations in how they express their theology, deciding what's the norm and what's not the norm. So multicultural denominations have to work really hard to move past Western white culture being the norm. I've seen it in Canada as I've been here this week. I didn't realize that the Canadian population, 20% of the population are African immigrants, 20%. And yet many of these people still feel unseen. There's great sensitivity to Indigenous culture and Indigenous presence in this church, but it's still a white normative culture. So we've still got a lot of work to do within churches like mine that are trying to be multicultural, because we can't just determine that I have a friend, Julia Middleton, who does a lot of work around cultural intelligence in the UK, and she's done some work in the US as well. And she says, you are not the benchmark for all people. I love that line. Where the way you see the world, the way you express yourself, the way you've dressed, what you value, you are not the benchmark for the whole world, the benchmark by which others should be judged. And in the church, we're still in the US, a white normative church when it comes to predominantly white churches. And we have to get past that.
I think that's right. We have just a few minutes before the end of our show. In fact, we have about 5. Is there hope in this hour? We see the attacks on the Voting Rights Act. We see the takeover by the federal government of the District of Columbia, with the threats of moving those takeovers to the people of Baltimore, to the people of Oakland, California, to other cities within the United States. We see a political party that many of us identify with, polling around 26% favorability ratings. It's as if they're not putting up the fight. And it's all occurring at a time, as we've discussed in the last hour, that people are losing faith in our sense of common belief in something. In the church, we pick up the same Bible, but we see 2 different stories. In the body politic, in the public sphere, we pick up the Constitution and we see the first 15 presidents weren't very helpful. Then Abraham Lincoln, number 16, and so forth and so on. The struggle continued. The basis for agreement, and maybe I can put it for you this way: why should we all stay at the table?
I think the Bible says hope does not disappoint. And for someone like me who is a faith leader, there has to be this confidence in this higher power that I believe will ultimately prevail. The Bible is full of stories of peoples throughout history who have dealt with a great number of valleys and difficulties, and yet have relied on the power of whoever they call the holy to bring them through. And I think that's the role of faith leaders. John Lewis always said, don't get discouraged, don't get weary. I'm reminded of the poem by Langston Hughes, The Negro Mother, and he says, life for me ain't been no crystal stair. So it's had tacks in it, and boards torn up, and places with no carpet on the floor. So don't you get weary. Don't you quit climbing, because life for me ain't been no crystal stair. And I think of the legacy of our ancestors who fought against odds even greater. The terrors of slavery, the terrors of the post-Reconstruction world, the KKK days in the early 20th century, even the Jews facing Holocaust and extinction, the people in Gaza, people in Ukraine who are dealing with so much. We have to really hold our heads high, and those of us who can claim faith in a God that's bigger than all this have to not only stand in that faith, but act in that faith and really assume some agency. This is not the time for people of faith to be apolitical. It's the time for people of faith to mobilize their communities and help make this society one that reflects the values that we believe in. You could argue that those who are Christian nationalists have tried to do that, but I'm talking about values of equity and inclusive love. Anytime we're exclusive, then I think we're violating the very law of God.
You know, I must be candid. You give me hope. To be a faith leader of a multicultural environment, a multicultural congregation in 2 different countries, to hold people together who have varying political views and probably politically don't agree on very much, but come together around the concept of the gospel, the concept of a sacrificial life, of a servant leader, someone that 2,000 years ago, that even to this day is worth following.
Yeah.
And to hold all of that together in the present, to be a woman, to be an African-American woman, and look out upon from the mountaintop or even from the valley view, the division that exists within the nation, and then to look out upon a multicultural throng of people and say, I'm going to preach a gospel that holds everyone together. Now, it's easy in this environment to preach a gospel to everybody who looks just like me, feels like me, talk like me, act like me. But getting up every Sunday and then Monday through Saturday trying to figure out a new angle on a new blister in the society has got to be some kind of extraordinary. I just want to take this opportunity to say that we're so proud of you and so grateful for your contributor to this program.
Thank you. It's a joy to be here every week. Thanks for the confidence in me to have me here sharing with you.
I can't wait until next week. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. You've been listening to Moving Mountain Mondays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We have a pretty amazing week scheduled for you. Tenacious Tuesdays with Barbara Arnwine, Wealthy Wednesdays with Reverend S. Todd Yeary. On Thursdays, none other than Johnny Mack. And on Thought-Provoking Thursdays, that is, and on Friday, Fat Meat Fridays with Gina Towns. That's what our lineup looks like this week, and we're looking forward to having a lot of fun. Unless, of course, Donald Trump intervenes with something crazy that changes the course of our week. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, you're on KBLA Talk 1580. More tomorrow.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.